If you are making money from mineral rights, remember, probably the safest asset class you'll ever invest in, and you get a monthly check. Like, that is incredible right there. And you're looking at like a 15% rate of return. Boom. Love it. Sold.
Welcome to Passive Income Pilots, where pilots upgrade their money. This is the definitive source for personal finance and investment tactics for aviators. We interview world-renowned experts and share these lessons with the flying community. So if you're ready for practical knowledge and insights, let's roll. Welcome back to Passive Income Pilots, everyone. I'm your host, Tait and Ryan, here with Ryan Gibson, the man, the myth, looking really fresh in that suit jacket today. Got your new headshot done?
I did. I got a new headshot, and we'll release that to the public soon.
In front of that nice Inc. 500 plaque. Yeah, looking good.
4 years in a row. Yeah, it's funny. I think I've been using the same headshot since circa 2017, the year that we met at the Best Ever Conference. So, Tate, I know you've been begging me to get my new headshot on. So, today's a holiday party at the Spartan office in Golden, Colorado. So we had Santa and Mrs. Claus in the office, and it was a lot of fun. And tonight we're doing our holiday party, and we just got done packing 1,100 investor gifts.
Wow!
So the Spartan elves have been hard at work. It's a yearly tradition that we've done. So it's always fun to put on some Christmas music and get those packages out the door. So
incredible.
Well, anyway, I'm super excited about this guest that we're bringing on, Derreck Long. We're bringing him back, but in a different capacity. He was the Quest guy. Now he's the oil and natural gas guy. Tate and I have been like on a witch hunt since we started the show, to find somebody who could really break down how to invest, or the different ways to invest in oil and natural gas. And given the fact that we're in this market that has a strong demand, and we're also in a changing geopolitical climate with, maybe Democrats leaving, Republicans coming in, maybe status quo, we're going to break down how that impacts oil and natural gas investing and in ways people can invest. So,
yeah, very insightful. Again, feel like we only scratched the surface, so we'll continue trying to source great guests that we can bring on to crack open this space a little bit more. Without further ado, let's get to the show. Derreck, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I love working with you guys, and I appreciate you just having me here on your podcast for the second time, by the way. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You're coming on as a second time in a new capacity. So we had you back on an episode talking about one of our preferred self-directed IRA custodians at Quest Trust Company. If you didn't listen to that episode and you don't know anything about self-directed IRA investing, that one is hits all the high points. I actually think that was the best description of a self-directed IRA episode, and I refer tons of people to it. Yeah,
hands down.
It was amazing. Yeah,
it was incredible. Yeah, so if you haven't listened to that, go back. But Derreck, so you got to explain to us and the listeners how you migrated over to Eckard. And what was this journey? Tell us about it.
Well, really what happened is I worked for Quest Trust Company. And for those of you out there listening, I am still at the very top of the field for the self-directed IRA industry. I've spoken at Congress 8 different times about self-directed IRAs. I've been an expert witness for the IRS in certain court cases. I sit on a government relations committee. I hold specific license to train CPAs and tax attorneys. So they get there's nothing left for me to learn. So I can't grow. Yeah, if you're not growing, if you're not making yourself uncomfortable, you can't move to the next level. So I put in a 1-year notice at Quest. Believe it or not, at the time you guys we were filming that other podcast, I already had my notice in. And I didn't know where I was going to go. And really what ended up happening is my family plus myself, we have so much money invested in the energy space / oil and gas. I thought that'd be the next great area for me to learn. And so I, started working with a good company. That's Eckard Enterprises is where I work now. We're not going to be talking about to invest in them. We're really just going to be talking about oil and gas, in general. But I really did love the move that I made, and I'm excited for it.
Well, congratulations on that. And I've always wanted to personally learn about what this oil and natural gas investing has been all about. And Tate and I are really, we've been trying to find a great guest to come on the show to talk about really just not about the opportunity, like you said, to invest, but just what is the opportunity and how does it work? And if I'm $1 being invested in oil, natural gas, like exactly where does that dollar go? How do I make money? Because one thing that drives me crazy, and I know it's a great benefit, is whenever you talk to oil and natural gas people, all I hear about is this massive tax break. But then I don't hear anything else about the investment. So, I like to, I know that has a benefit, so we'll get into that later, but, I'm just really excited to hear about, how oil and natural gas investing works, especially in this time where it seems like it's at a premium.
Yep. So, I always break it down first, and I say there's 3 different ways really to invest in oil and gas outside of just buying oil stocks or gas stocks, right? Ignoring the stock market. I'm saying like 3 ways to invest alternatively in the oil and gas space. And one of them is called working interest. One of them is a pipeline. And then one of them is actually the mineral rights. And each of these provide different aspects. So what you just mentioned was actually the working interest side that gives you those big tax deductions. And we can start there if you want and talk about that.
Well, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, working interest is the most risky. And I'm going to scare the pants off all of you. You invest in working interest, you have a 90% chance to lose every dollar you invested. 90%. That's insane.
Wow.
Now, depending on which administration is in office, right? As an example, when Trump was in office, what ended up happening is if you invested in working interest, you got a dollar for dollar tax deduction. That's it, right? Why? Because the IRS knows this is very risky. Congress knew investing in working interest is risky, right? So they give you a dollar for dollar deduction. When the Biden administration came over, they changed it down to 80 to 90 cents, depending on where it is. So let's just call it 80 cents on the dollar. That's still a hell of a tax deduction.
And the key here is that it can be used to offset active income, which is always the issue with real estate. We can provide a 50, sometimes even close to. We had a mobile home park deal that had almost 100%, almost a dollar for dollar. But unless you're a real estate professional, you can't use it to offset your W-2, right? So this is the super accretive benefit of, and that's how it's always sold is. Hey, you invest $100K, you can take $100K off your 401K.
I don't want to glaze over this. This is a big deal. So you're saying that this is active losses if you invest in...
That's correct. And why would the Congress do this, right? Why would they give you such a big tax deduction? It's A, they know it's risky. B, they need the wealthy people to be investing in working interest. So what is working interest? It means you're investing actually in the drill, in those big pumps you see, right? That's doing this, right? You're investing in that equipment, and those drill heads are actual diamonds. If you didn't know, it's a diamond drill head, right? Yes. If they break in the ground, right, and the pipe bends or anything in the drill, if anything, and it gets stuck there, you have to start all over from the very top. You can't drill through the drill head. You can't pull it out of the ground. You're talking, you go miles. This is why it's so risky, right? So if you're investing in this, that's what you're investing in. This also means you have capital calls. Once you invested until you're bought out of the project or you just try to exit and you don't want to provide your capital anymore, you will always have capital calls in this aspect. So this is very dangerous. It's very risky. And this is where most scam artists will come into play. Believe it or not, if you ever hear all these horror stories about investing in oil and gas, it's because they invested in working interest. All right.
So could you help us understand as well, because this is beautiful. This is such good information. Understand a little bit more about just the overall space, because of course there's Mobil and Exxon and their drilling, but there's also sort of middle size players and small players. So can you give us some context in terms of, if you're investing in a working interest, what size of company are you investing in? Or are you investing with a middleman who's then giving it to an operator? How does that work?
You're never investing in Mobil or Exxon or BP ever.
Right.
Like you're really investing in, I'm going to call it the middle guy. And this is because they're the ones that are drilling for the oil and they're selling it over to those big companies. So you want to look at, if you're going to be investing in something like that, you're really investing in someone that is their focus there. They're then selling the oil to the big oil companies, right? And so that sale that you're seeing right there, that is your profit. That's what you're making. Exxon, BP, they're not investing in drilling, right? You're never going to be able to invest in those. Why? Because they're the billion-dollar company. They don't need to raise capital. Right. They're not sitting here saying, hey, I need $10 million to drill a hole. That's a drop in the bucket for them, So you're always investing in those small companies. Good companies to look at would be like there's a oil company called Devon, right? DEVON or Devon. That is what a lot of people say. But like, that's just as an example. If you see them in your portfolio, they're usually drilling in areas of what's called the Anadarko Basin and Permian Basin, which are big basins in the U.S. that hold trillions, and that's not an exaggeration, trillions of barrels of oil.
We have two properties out there, one in the Permian and one is in the Delaware Basin.
Dude, I hope you own the minerals, because that's how we'll end it, right? Yeah. Is owning minerals is where you make a lot of money.
Well, I'll talk about the mineral rights on our property here in just a minute. So when we get into
that's where me and my family have most of our money. But so the working interest side, here's the thing: is like I was saying, it's very risky. And I told you, 90% chance you could lose all your money. There's a 10% chance, whatever you invested, give it 2 to 3 years, you're probably going to make 5 times to 10 times what you invested. Put in $100,000, you can make $1 million in 3 years. Wow. That's insane.
But with a 90% chance of losing all your money, if you did it 10 times, you'd be even Stevens, right? At those odds.
There you go. So how do you invest in working interest? You invest the money that you owe the IRS. Right now, I have a rough estimate how much I'm going to owe in taxes next year. So if I owe $25,000 in taxes to the IRS next year, option 1, give it to the IRS. Option 2, put it in working interest. Well, I was going to lose that money either way. Why don't I take the deduction over here, right? If it hits, yay. If it doesn't, I was losing it either way.
So how does somebody who's making, let's say, $400,000 a year slice that? Because you'd have about $100,000 tax bill at the end of the year. But if you were to invest $100,000, your adjusted gross income would only come down to $300,000, and you'd still owe taxes on that $300K, right?
You absolutely would. So you got to play, and your CPA should be able to help you out with this and try to figure out what you're going to really end up owing. Because remember, too, it's not a dollar for dollar, right? In our case, it's going to be 80 cents on the dollar right now. Now, for a Republican, because we are coming up into a new year, so most likely that will go back to a dollar for dollar. And you can see that from the Obama administration to the Bush administration, But it is what it is. So
interesting. Okay.
If you're going to invest in working interest, there is so many scam artists out there. It is unbelievable. So what you want to do is ask for the serial number of the wells. They have to actually apply that with the county. And just like your county tax records for a property, you can go straight to the county appraisal website, look up the serial number to the well, and see that they're the actual owner, right? If they're not the actual owner, don't do it.
There you go.
That's mind-blowing, I think.
Yeah.
So the serial numbers are listed on a government site.
Yep.
And so I guess the next step in the discovery there would be you put in the serial number, it pulls up a well. How do you know the money that you invested is actually associated with the name that's on the well? Because your name's not going to be on the well. XYZ company is going to be on there. So how do you know how many people are actually in there and invested and things like that?
If I want to invest in storage units, right, I'm going to look up and I want to know that Spartan owns this aspect, and Spartan Investment Group is going to, and I can see that, right, with your documents, and that's what's nice to see. So that's what you're looking for, right? And if you can't do that due diligence, or they're like, no, we don't give out the serial numbers to our well, that's a red flag. And
what website do you go to and input that in? Like, what is it like? Oil.gov or something?
No, it's actually just the county appraisal district, just like you're looking.
Oh, interesting.
Where you type in your property address, same thing. They have a spot for oil.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Now what if they don't have a serial number because they say that they haven't built the well yet, or they're drilling or whatever.
But before they're even allowed, because of the EPA, right, they have to already apply for this stuff. Just like how when you raise capital, you applied for with the SEC to raise capital. Same thing. They've already been assigned that.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That's interesting. Yeah, we did diligence on a deal that we did not do because we brought on a couple of oil and gas engineers to look over some potential deals in 2023. And one of the operators who we were working with, or not working with, but investigating, was saying, "Yeah, we haven't done it yet. We're behind on our paperwork." And that was like, nope. And we didn't move forward with
that's a red flag. And then you got to think about it. It's because they can kind of get away with it. Oh, hey, look, you got your tax deduction. They gave it to you. You filled out your little form, and then they just really took your money. They half-assed did the well, and then.
Well, as Bill Burr once said, he goes, boy, if I wanted the tax write-off, I'd give it to the Boy Scouts. So how do we make money in this, in this space without taking such a massive risk?
So the next one would be a pipeline. All right. Now, pipelines are very few, far in between. And I would argue if you're going to invest in a pipeline, if you don't want to invest in one on land, you typically want to invest one in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. And you typically want to invest into a gas pipeline, not an oil pipeline. There is a big difference. So on the gas pipeline side, there isn't as much pressure in the lines in this big pipe. And even if there is a burst or something like that, there's little shut-off valves on each side, like in each, call it 20-foot section. So they can just shut it off and then repair it, do what they need to. And gas, if it goes into the ocean or goes into the ocean, it's just an air bubble, Whereas if we think of about 10 years ago, there was a burst of some pipes in the Gulf from BP. Do you remember that? And they couldn't plug it because it was just oil and it wouldn't stop flowing.
Yeah.
Right? That can happen in an oil pipeline. So you want to invest in a gas pipeline if possible. Now, here's the downside is there's not very many of them out there. There's really not. Why? Because it's actually, once they're developed, everyone's just going to keep going to that same pipeline. So if you can get in on one, they're very low risk. Your risk involved is actually weather. So if you get hit with 3, 4, 5 hurricanes, this will delay any producing income you get for probably years. All right. So you're really going to be worried about, because where did I just say the pipeline would be? The Gulf of Mexico. Right.
Interesting.
Well, where are hurricanes built? The Gulf, right? It's coming right up through that area. So that's really your risk involved. Has nothing to do with the operator, because you can Google the operator very quickly and make sure it's legitimate. It's usually just weather itself. So that's the big thing there. What I don't like about pipelines is I don't have a monthly cash flow. I don't have a quarter. There is no, it's a once a year. Hey, here's your disbursement. The reason why is on the K1, they need to know how much they produced before the full year, because if they did per month, it's not going to work. They have to give you a proper profit loss statement to figure out how much they're going to give you. Pipelines are nice, very rare though to see. So
what do the tax write-offs look like on those, and how would you find one?
Very minimal, to be honest. Most of the time, if you do have any losses, they're just going to be recaptured when you do make profit, right? Mm-hmm. As an example, if you invest $100,000, you might get lucky one year to have $10,000 in losses, but the next year then you're going to have $10,000 in gains that they're just going to offset each other. So you don't really have a whole lot of write-offs with investing into a pipeline. Very rarely you get to even claim the depreciation or anything along those lines. So,
how would you find one?
There's only one that I know of, believe it or not, and that's actually with the company that I work with, and that's Eckard Enterprises.
Interesting.
So, however, I don't believe they're even raising capital right now for it. You'd have to call and ask, because the only time they are ever raising capital or letting new investors is when they're adding in addition to the pipeline. Such as, hey, we got a new contract. Someone else they're going to bring in new barges. Now our new contract, so we need to build a new barge, right? Boom. Now you can go ahead and raise more money and get in there. And they have their Class A, Class B, Class C sections of it. So if you're looking at a PPM.
Okay. So that's number 2. What's number 3?
Man, the best one of them all, and that's the mineral rights. So
yeah, it sounds like you're excited.
This is actually what really got me and my dad excited. God, I'm a freaking dork. Is owning actual mineral rights. And this is the equivalent to you buying a piece of land. So what happens is you own an acre. I don't care where that acre is, right? This acre right here, an oil company is going to drill on it, and they have to pay you rent, is a good way to look at it. That's it. You don't hold any liability. You don't have to hold insurance, right? And before you even buy the minerals or own the minerals, if you're buying it for oil and gas reasons, you will already know how much oil they're pulling out of the ground. 100%. You can calculate it immediately. And so what's nice is you can be like, this will be my rate of return. This is this. And you get a monthly check. Here's the cool thing about the monthly check. Those monthly checks will last for 25 to 50 years. So it is a consistent cash pull right away, no liability. You have tenants that are oil companies that are billion-dollar oil companies, and I don't know, I love it because of that. So
how do you go find an acre of land with mineral rights? What's that look like?
So that's tough because unfortunately, the joke is that everyone will sell their minerals. They really will. So if you're going to buy mineral rights, you want to buy them in what they call a basin. You mentioned earlier that you have some in, was it the Permian Basin?
Yeah, we have one in the Delaware and the Permian. We're out in Pecos, north of Pecos in Orla, and then Gardendale, Texas, which is between Midland and Odessa.
Yep. And this is the Highway 285 RV park, right? Or is this something different?
Yeah, Highway 285 RV park and Goldenrod RV park. And, those are workforce housing RV parks that we bought in circa 2017, 2019. And we provide housing for folks that are working on the pipeline and energy. Out in Orla or Pecos, that is more focused on natural gas. And in Midland, Odessa, it's mostly focused on oil.
So on those, are you getting any monthly checks yet on your minerals?
So we don't have mineral rights. So it was interesting when we bought the property, we actually had to get a surface use agreement because we have one of those oil pumps in the park, in the middle of the park. They had the right to drive onto the property and operate that thing. So we actually had to get a surface use agreement to allow them to do that.
So here's the cool thing about minerals is when they pull oil and gas out of the ground, before the operator can even sell it, they have to pay the mineral owner. The mineral owner is the first person to get paid. Okay. In addition, commodity prices do not affect the mineral owner like you think they do, right? They are a win-win situation. So on an average, every time you pull a barrel of oil out of the ground, you'll see the average contract between 15 and 18% of whatever they sell that barrel of oil for. So if it was $100 a barrel, the first $15 has to go to the mineral owner. That's not
so
bad.
Interesting.
Okay?
Not bad.
Pretty good.
But, so if you think the more expensive oil is, right, the better that is for you, right? It doesn't matter. What happens is if they're selling oil right now at $100 a barrel, well, great, right? I get $15 per barrel, right? But they're not going to pull out as much oil because it's very expensive. Right now, just so you guys are aware, oil is selling at about $72, $73 a barrel right now, okay? So if it was jumped all the way up to $100 a barrel, well, hey, we're making more on our minerals, but that means they don't drill as much. Well, what happens if it goes down to $50 a barrel? Well, guess what the oil companies do? They start drilling and they pull it all out of the ground so much faster, they're going to hold on to it and sell it when the market goes back up. Well, now they're pulling all that oil out. I'm getting paid on more barrels of oil. So it doesn't matter, right?
That's amazing.
So being a mineral right owner is amazing. You know what sucks about it, though? It's almost impossible to get into. I just told you there is an asset class where you actually own an acre, like you're a legitimate owner. You're not investing in a limited partnership or an LLC or something like that. No, your name is on the deed. You hold a deed. You can do a 1031 exchange of selling a single family home or commercial property into owning minerals, 100%. So you're the owner. You don't have to hold insurance. There is no liability, no mud taxes or property taxes, and your tenants are billion-dollar oil companies that pay you first. So why doesn't everyone do it? Because there's only so many acres available. And what happens is usually a package will get released. And it will be something like I said in the Permian Basin or an Anadarko Basin. And the acres are cheap. They range between I've seen as low as $8,000 and as expensive as $13,000 an acre. Man, I got an extra 10 grand sitting around. I'll buy 1 acre. Why not? You know? But if there's only 500 acres available, the guy comes in with $1 million, you're stuck waiting.
So if the market is efficient, why wouldn't the price, the prices be bid up to the point where the competition was weaker? You look at, stocks, real estate, anything where there's a really accretive benefit, that tends to balance with market forces as more buyers come into the pool and bid the price up, right?
So this gets actually right to Ryan's question. Ryan was like, well, how do you go find those minerals? How do you go buy those minerals? You don't buy them individually. You can't buy one mineral, right? It's almost impossible. Usually what you have to do is buy the whole package and you have to place a bid, right? And so what ends up happening is, well, like I said, there's 500 acres. It's $10,000 an acre. Well, this is a $5 million or a $10 million project, whatever it might be. So you have to write a check, no debt, No rate, like nothing like no raising capital. No, it's on the spot. If you're buying this is the price, right?
And is this a leftover from like the wild, wild west of it's just like, an old school auction?
Sort of. So anytime minerals actually go up for sale in things like the Permian Basin or the Anadarko Basin, usually they're going up for sale because grandma and grandpa died and they left it to the 10 kids and so they don't know what it's worth. And so it says, I'll give you $20 million for it. And you go, sure, hell yeah. They don't realize what it's really worth. And it's very hard to actually appraise them because once again, depending on where they are, the sections of them, I mean, if I own minerals in Phoenix, Arizona, those are worthless. They really are. There has been almost zero gas or oil out there in Arizona. But I own, so there's specific basins you kind of got to know and figure out how to own them and those type of things. So what's difficult is you have to buy the whole package.
What are the opportunities over the next year that you see in oil and natural gas in any sector of these three that you talked about?
So it's actually huge. All right. So first off, right now there is two different sides of it. So I'm going to start with the Democratic side, then we'll go to the Republican side. All right. So that way we're kind of playing all sides. I don't want to take a political stance here on this type of podcast, if that's fair. Right. So on the Democratic side, they're trying to figure out how to remove oil and I'm going to label this fossil fuels, right, from the energy space, but it's almost impossible for them, right? I know they have good intentions and they go to solar, go to this, but they can't because we are so reliant on fossil fuels, right? But you know what is less environmental, dangerous and environmental hazardous, and what they're actually, and you can look this up, under the Inflation Reduction Act that the Biden administration put forward, okay, is moving more things to natural gas, right? If we can start to instead run things more from a natural gas standpoint versus oil, that will be cleaner for the environment. There is so much of it. This will make gas though skyrocket. It's easier. It's less than, like I was even saying in the pipeline, you're not affecting the wildlife the same way you would. And so there's a lot of advantages there. So in that space, from a Democratic side, you want to get in now, because as time goes on, we will be focusing more and more of our energy efforts, scientific efforts on this space right here, whether you believe it or not.
And this is something I've really dug into, is that natural gas really goes hand in hand with the green energy transformation, right? Because
and people don't realize that,
right? Because when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, there you have to have power that supplements and fills in the gaps, and natural gas is the perfect solution to that.
And
right?
It's cheap and inefficient too. I mean,
and efficient.
Efficient,
yeah.
I should say. Yeah. Efficient, yeah.
So it's so unique there. Now, if we go to the Republican side, right? Republican side, they've already stated that no, they're going to open up those wells. They're going to say, hey, drill, baby, drill. They want as many active wells possible. Why? Because this will ultimately drive oil prices down. And if you guys didn't know, do you know who the number one, we could now export, we were always able to export our oil and sell it, right? But we can now. So now that we as a country can actually pull out our own oil and sell it, we sell more oil over to Europe than almost anywhere else, right? And so look at that. If I know this and I'm on the Republican side or the Democratic side, this is the time really to be investing in that oil and gas space. It really, really is.
So,
and that's something that I've had conversations about in the past is if you were an investor in oil, in the oil and gas space in, I don't know, a decade ago, 15 years ago, you may have gotten crushed. I mean, it was not a good time to be in this space. And we're sort of in a unique moment in history right now where we're seeing some opportunities in the space, right?
I think you could say that actually about almost any industry. And I think a big thanks to being able to not get crushed is actually the internet. You know how easy I can do due diligence on something now? Like, in all honesty, right? I can Google just about anything I want. Boom, I'm going to bring up something. And so I think that's a huge aspect. It's both the pro and con, because you get all the false news too, right? But with all the political stuff, and we know that we're trying to come together more, despite all the bad news, negative news, we are trying to come together more and more and more as a society, right? As all the countries evolve. And this is something that people are looking at doing, So
I do want to plug the tax benefit on royalty interest, because we didn't touch on that. So is there any tax benefit to royalties?
If you are making money from mineral rights, remember, probably the safest asset class you'll ever invest in, and you get a monthly check. Like, that is incredible right there. And you're looking at like a 15% rate of return. Boom. Love it. Sold.
No, real quick. The minerals actually have to be used, right? So you need to find a property that not only has minerals, but you have to have an oil company on there actually extracting it and paying you, right?
So this is why before you buy them, you should be buying them. Actually, let's see if I got the book. Yeah. So anyone you buy minerals from should give you a book like this, okay? And what it will do is, like this one, on the very first page says, hey, there is 500 acres available. These are the oil companies that are on there. Currently, there is 39 producing wells. And then the book will give you the serial numbers to the wells. Hey, I know there's 39 producing wells, but there's 8 wells that are being drilled in those same areas, And so, and it doesn't matter which company you go with, they should give you a booklet like that to help with, because you don't want to be buying minerals, like I said, in Phoenix, Arizona. It doesn't work.
Right.
So they should already be giving you something where they say, hey, look, this is the oil companies on here. This is how much they're pulling out. This is what you'll be making.
So 80 to 90% tax write-off on the working interest, which is super dangerous, right?
Right.
Not dangerous, but risky. Gas pipeline, really not much tax benefit there, but great if you can get in. Any tax benefits on the mineral rights?
It's taxed at the royalty bracket, and you get a 15% depletion allowance.
So interesting. So why don't more people know about this, Derek? You we were talking before the call, and you had a special advantage working for an IRA custodian that does alternative investments, right? Because you kind of had a nice peek behind the curtain to what portfolios were doing really well and what they were investing in, right? Can you speak to that a little bit and maybe tie that into why the switch to working for an oil company right now?
Yeah, also, it wasn't so much a switch, like as for me working wise, right? But it was more for my personal knowledge. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to gain more expertise in a specific area, right?
And your family has a lot of background in this investment class as well.
They do. So, as of right now, my family has about $2.5 million, give or take. I couldn't tell you exactly how much, but honestly, when I say that, I mean that's me and my wife, my dad, my grandparents, my wife's family, and then my uncle as well. So
personally invest in this.
5 of us, like we've all put in a good share between, and all of that has actually been into mineral rights.
And what have you seen from working for an IRA company and seeing what people are investing in?
So the thing is I want to invest with someone that is, first off, very open, has an open book, the like kind of policy, and that isn't afraid to go ahead and just, I'm going to say, speak their mind in that aspect. Prime example, and Ryan, I tell you this all the time. I love Spartan Investments, and I have done my best to try to send as many people over to Ryan, because of the very first time I ever saw him talk, right, was on a panel, and all these other people raising capital were guaranteeing this and guaranteeing that, and Ryan's like, guys, that's actually illegal. You can't just be guaranteeing this random stuff. What I'll guarantee you is that I won't do anything to harm your money. I'm going to do my very best to produce this, and you can go and see our books. And I was like, that's who you invest in.
Absolutely.
And there's not a whole lot of partners out there or capital raisers that will do this. But when I looked at the Eckard Enterprises, when they raise capital, there's no debt. If they need $10 million, they're raising $10 million. There is not, no, we're raising $2 million and borrowing $8 million, but nope, zero debt. Okay. This is because you are a legitimate owner, right? They don't actually call you an investor, they call you a partner. So that was a big pro for me. Next, I actually saw the monthly checks coming in. And this is because it's not coming actually from Eckard Enterprises. It's coming from the oil companies, So I like to see that monthly cash flow. And when I can just see behind the scenes,
And so they're mineral rights. Sorry if you already said that, but they're mineral right investors. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes. 100% they're mineral right investors. So,
Gotcha.
yep. So with those mineral rights, right, that was the next attractive thing, was seeing that I see these huge accounts, these 20, 30, $40 million IRA accounts putting money in the mineral space. But when I asked them why, it wasn't because of the rates of return. It wasn't because of the safety. It was because of the ability to pass it down. And I always joke when I say you still have that kind of control. Mineral rights are typically actually really hard to sell once you own them. So if I wanted to make sure my family was taken care of, and I'm 70 years old, and I know that I can get, 1% for every month for the next 50 years on this money, well, let's do that, and I'll buy a section of mineral rights. Now, I'm over exaggerating when I say for 50 years. All right. I just, a lot of people in the oil and gas space, that's kind of what they look at those minerals. Most people will sell them before a 50-year time frame and find some way to sell them. But that's what they predict that each one of those sections or drills will activate and work for.
And in that book where you were actually looking for mineral rights to buy, does it tell you how much is left in the tank? Is that a bad way to say it? But how much is left to suck out of the ground?
Sort of. So it won't. That's where you want to look at those basins, like I mentioned, the Permian Basin. As of right now, they estimate that there's about 5 trillion barrels of oil left in the Permian Basin. Now, obviously, that's an estimate. There's no way to really gauge this. That's a lot of oil.
Yeah, when we were evaluating our RV park purchases, I found something that said they could pump oil for the next 40 years, and yeah.
And that's the thing. So that's what I'm saying. Look, you get royalties for 50 years right there. Come on, man. That is something cool to pass on to your kids. It really is. And this is where people typically actually inherit those minerals. Grandma and Grandpa was a farmer. They owned all this, and there it is.
I think that's something important to remember, though, is that unlike real estate, where you might be getting, 10% cash flow throughout the whole period, and then you eventually get your money back plus, a profit on sale. This is, if you invest $1 million, let's say, and you're making 1% a month, you're never going to see, the return of principal if you always hold it. It's just a forever stream of cash flow. So it might take a few years, 5 years plus to 10 years plus to make your money back, right?
Well, so this really depends on the mineral package. So one of those, the little packs I just showed you, it said there was 50 working wells. Right? Hey, these are wells are producing. We can calculate your income right now off the producing wells. But then it said there is 10 wells that are and they call it a DUC status. They're being drilled. They haven't drilled all the way down yet, but they're still in that status of drilling. So they're not producing. Those are the ones that will produce, those 10 wells in my example, will produce way more than 50. Why do you think? Yeah,
because they're new?
Yeah.
Because they're new.
That's it.
Right.
So the 50 wells that they're basing this income off of, and they call them vintage wells. A lot of times these might be 10, 20, 30-year-old wells. Well, that means that this has 30-year-old equipment. You put the newest pump, the newest jack, the newest thing over here, that's going to pump so much faster. So you'll see a huge spike in your royalties. You'll be like, oh, I'm getting $300 a month on my $45,000 investment. $300. Whoa, why didn't I just get $1,000? Well, that new well just turned on, so you get this, and I think of it like a soda, or like a bottle of soda. Like when you shake it up, right? You open it up. Well, when it first opens up, you get that big old shh. Then it will die down. So your royalties, they usually spike and they come down. They spike and they come down like that. But that's why. So sometimes you'll see them. You'll buy a mineral package, and I've seen some of them. They get their ROI back in 2 years. And I've seen some where you nailed it. It'll take 10 years for them to make their principal back.
So interesting.
Yeah, this has been really informative, Derreck. Really appreciate you coming on and talking about all this stuff. What are the downsides in investing in mineral rights?
Liquidation. That would, if you ask me, was the biggest downside, right? Is right now, if I own a single family home, I can't sell it tomorrow, but I can sell it, right? I can put it on the market. I can choose to take a loss, or I can choose to take a gain, right? I can kind of play with that, right? It might take me 60, 90 days to sell the house, but I can sell it, right? When you invest in minerals, I tell people you want to have a 10-year plus, frame of mind. You can't, this isn't real estate. I like to refer to it as real estate. The IRS labels minerals as real estate. It's why you can do a 1031 exchange, but it's not. You're owning something that's 2-3 miles in the ground.
It's just so interesting that there's no secondary market. Like, why wouldn't some fintech company come along and create a marketplace that was efficient for exchange?
So it's funny you say that is Eckard Enterprises is actually doing that. It was supposed to be released in January. Here's the problem, though, with it is hackers, right? Can you imagine this? It's just not viable. It's not, it doesn't work real well right now, but they're trying. And what the plan is in the next year to have an MLS program like that. And when I say MLS, if you guys aren't familiar, it's just what agents use to, put your properties up for sale. But that's really it.
Yeah, the multiple listing service.
And so if we can create that, which Eckard Enterprises, they actually already have the app. You can download it right now. It's just not fully active for that area. But they do hope to have it active in the next year.
Interesting.
We bought, I guess, a 10-acre park in Gardendale, Odessa, Midland area. We bought a 20-acre park in the Pecos, Orla area of Texas. And by the way, if you haven't been there, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's so in the middle of nowhere that we actually have to truck in the water every week to service that. We have a big water tower in the middle of our RV park, and we actually have to truck in the water. They have to fill it up, and then then all the tenants
That's
get
the middle of nowhere.
That's the middle of nowhere. I like to say it's in Pecos, but it's 45 minutes north of Pecos, and it's on the most dangerous highway in the world, Highway 285 in Texas, because all the oil trucks and everybody's crazy. Anyway, we bought that property, and we own the land, but we don't own the mineral rights. So can you kind of unpack that a little bit? We don't, since we own the property, I guess we don't go down technically 3,000 feet or whatever, miles and miles and miles. So when you say that mineral right investing is buying is like buying real property, except that it's illiquid, kind of explain how I can own land but not the mineral rights below the surface.
It's crazy. It's all up to the state. And some states, and I want to say Virginia is one of them. If you buy a single family home, you own the minerals there as well. And so they have 3 types of rights. You have, surface rights, which is what we're all familiar with. Surface rights, that's where your house is. But you actually have air rights and mineral rights. So most of us don't own the air rights or the mineral rights of any of our properties. And it's all really regulated by the state back 1700s, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And that was just kind of things that never really been updated. And I got to be honest, I think one of the reasons is it's not able to really be quantified. As an example, what is your address? Well, I can look that up and it's right here. Well, what is the address then to your mineral rights? Is it the same thing? No, not really. As geologists have gotten better at mapping where the oil and gas is, they've actually developed really unique ways to almost give an address now to these minerals. I'd be willing to bet in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see something very similar to having an address book to your mineral rights as to a single family home.
Interesting. Yeah, wait, that's another way for people to tax it. So probably.
Yay! More taxes.
Yeah, more taxes.
Well, if someone wanted to really go down the rabbit hole on this and learn about it, are there some books that you could recommend or master classes or something like that?
So I don't know of any good books. As a matter of fact, almost all the books and almost all the classes people take on oil and gas, it keeps going back to working interest, right? And this is why the minute that you brought me on here, Ryan's like, yeah, I heard you get these big tax deductions. No one knows about the pipelines. No one knows about mineral rights, right? And it's so rare, but it is so lucrative. So I tell people, if you want to get information, EckardEnterprises.com has about 30 or 40 videos that start from a 101 level all the way to a really, really advanced, so how to read a map of the geologist read. And they have a series of videos. It's completely free. You don't have to be an investor. So check it out. So
we'll link to that in the show notes.
Derek, it sounds like you got a good holiday homework assignment. You can write a book on this stuff, right? So,
have you seen my emails? You're lucky. There's 6 commas in there in one sentence for some reason.
Well, they've got editors for that. So, Well, Derreck, thanks so much for coming on. Great to connect with you again. This has been highly informative for me. I'm sure our listeners are going to very much appreciate this. And Tate and I picked up a ton.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface, so we're gonna have to keep digging. Pun intended.
There we go. No pun intended.
Make sure if you're listening to this, subscribe to the Passive Income for Pilots, guys. Like, this is a great podcast. Tate, Ryan, you guys don't even get paid to do this, bring this on. You're just trying to provide information out to everybody. So thank you. Like, honestly,
just trying to do that for the pilot group.
Yeah, selfishly, I wanted to bring you on because I wanted to learn all about this, because I've always been in the dark about oil and natural gas investing. And every time I ask people, like I said, I get this weird answer, and it's vague, and I don't really understand it, and I don't know all the risks and pros and cons. And so I appreciate you going into that and, kind of really breaking it down for us.
Absolutely, guys. Do your due diligence. Make sure it's a group you like to work with, and go from there.
Great. Well, thanks, Derreck. How can listeners get involved or get in touch with you?
If you want to, I tell people to just reach out to me on my cell number. So I can give my cell number if that's okay. But
totally.
It's 832-840-1161. Send me a text first, because most likely I'll say a random number. I'm just going to ignore you.
It's a good idea. Generally.
But that's probably the best way to do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, thanks, Derreck.
Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.